Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on into the Rooted Podcast. Of course, sponsored by our awesome friends over at Green Bros, home of the world's premier cannabis harvesting solutions. Tim Strobel coming to you from our Rooted Podcast production facility out here in beautiful Denver, Colorado. Hey, by the way, real quick, do us a favor if you're listening to the show, subscribe or leave a review so we can continue to blow up the show. Also, be sure to check out Rooted TV, our bi-weekly web series that streams on Cannabis Club TV, High Times TV, Harvest TV, and a couple more places as well. Lastly, if you love the audio version of this podcast, hit us up on our website at stayrooted.com or YouTube page to find the full video version of the podcast as well, with moving pictures and everything. You get to see the voices and the faces to the voices, okay? Lastly, we're pumped to be out heading to LA this weekend, a couple of weekends ago, if you're listening to this, a month from now. But we'll be interviewing Tommy Chong and Jim Belushi, two absolute legends of the entertainment industry. And those podcasts should be coming up next in our series, so keep an eye out. Okay, as for today, we have a really interesting show for you as we're going to be talking about cannabis politics, voting, music, and a project called the Cannabis Voters Project that aims to connect all of these dots together, okay? Sam D'Arcangelo, the director of Headcount's Cannabis Voter Project, and guitarist Adam Schmeens Smirnoff from the band Lettuce join the show in a moment to talk about this project, its origins, and how they're looking to make an impact. We'll welcome them in just a moment, but first, just got to let you know this podcast brought to you by our awesome friends over at Green Bros, home of the world's premier dry harvesting solutions, from small-scale cultivations to commercial grows. Green Bros dry trimmers, trichome extractors, destemmers, sorters, precision batchers, the box, rosin press. I could go on and on and on. Their machines want to save you time, money, and labor. Check them out, greenbros.com, or call 844-DRY-TRIM to schedule a demo in your area today. You can also check out Green Bros at NECAN in Boston, March 22nd to 24th, Lift in Toronto, June 6th to 9th, and NCIA San Jose, July 22nd to 24th. So mark those on your calendars. If you'll be out there, make sure you hit up Green Bros. Okay, without any further ado, let's welcome in our guests for this afternoon, Sam D'Arcangelo, the director of Headcount's Cannabis Voter Project, and Adam Schmeens Smirnoff, guitarist from the legendary band Lettuce. Gentlemen, how are you this afternoon? Thanks for joining us.
Man, I'm doing great. Thank you for having. It's good to be here.
Yeah, likewise.
I'm psyched, guys. Sam, I mean, if we could start with you, the Cannabis Voter Project, run by Headcount. Can you give us a background of what Headcount is and why they launched the Cannabis Voter Project?
Yeah, absolutely. So Headcount is a nonprofit, nonpartisan voter registration organization that has been around since 2004. We're primarily known for registering people to vote at concerts and music festivals, as well as online by leveraging the social media followings of various artists and celebrities who direct their fans to go and register to vote. That's what we're primarily known for. But over the years, we're always looking for ways to find new voters who want to get engaged in the political process. And we've come to see that cannabis is an issue that is of great importance to a lot of people, particularly on the live music scene, but just in general. And we kind of realized that there was a particular opportunity here to reach a set of voters, and a lot of voters, potential voters, people who otherwise might not be interested in voting. And so the idea was that we would create a website where people could come and find out where their congressman stood on cannabis policy, where their governor stood on cannabis policy, what was going on in their state, really get informed and find out the ways that their vote could be used to impact cannabis policy. And we could use that as an entry point to get people who otherwise might not care about the political process to start caring about it. So, there's a lot of people who, especially when you're dealing with young people, who think, my politicians don't listen to me, my vote doesn't matter. And we know that generally speaking, that's not true. But this issue offers a really great way to introduce people to the idea of political participation and of using their vote to influence policy. And we hope that, they'll come for the cannabis and just sort of stick around for civic engagement in general.
You can check them out, cannabisvoter.info. That link will, of course, be in the description of the podcast below, so you can go ahead, scroll down, click the link. They are educating Americans about how their vote can impact cannabis policy. You could register to vote. You can see the politicians' cannabis stance. You can volunteer at events on the site as well, so I definitely encourage you to go check that out. Schmeens, why did Lettuce choose to get involved with this project, and how did the relationship come about for you guys?
We've had a lot of different connections through close personal friends who work at Headcount and have done this for years, and then our beliefs that if we could get our crowd to start voting and signing up people who hadn't been registered, that can make a little bit of a difference in the upcoming elections.
Sam, you're born and raised in New Orleans. You spent years as a musical journalist. Now you're getting to work with a band like Lettuce on a project like this. That's got to be kind of a dream come true for a music nut like you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to take two of my biggest passions, which are, live music and also cannabis policy, and kind of combine them into a project that I think, sort of benefits both.
Schmeens, in terms of cannabis, I know that you guys, Lettuce, are launching your own cannabis brand. You've got a cannabis strain out there. Have you guys always been into cannabis? I mean, as a band, it seems like such a dumb question for me to ask, because cannabis seems to always go hand in hand with music. But has that always been something that's helped you guys creatively?
I don't know if it's helped us creatively, but it's something that we bonded over, just having a passion for it when we were younger. And, we have a lot of different passions that we bond over as friends of 20 plus years with each other. And this being one of them. We were very proud that when we got the statistics at the end of the year last year, that Lettuce was in the top 10 of tours of signing people up to vote. It was like Beyonce and Jay-Z #1, like Lettuce. But that's incredible to even be on a list with Jay-Z and Beyonce and the size of their tours. And it just shows you how engaged our fans are. And, I really believe that we're doing good things.
And the cannabis strain that's out is called Lettuce Funk, correct?
That's the strain that's out currently exclusively at the Denver Kush Club. I'm hoping to expand the Lettuce brand more as the years go on, and look for Lettuce CBD stuff to be coming out. Hopefully a concentrate in different markets. Hopefully we'll be able to hit Los Angeles and Las Vegas and a lot of the other San Francisco, a lot of the other bigger places for us as well, and maybe New York as they legalize.
You can check that out, lettucefunk.com, the website for the brand that's getting going. Schmeens, one of the things I want to know about the music community, because the cannabis community is the small, tight-knit community where most people seem to know most people, or it's that 6 degrees of separation where you're always right next to someone who knows someone. Is cannabis inside of music? Is that kind of the same? Like, is that ever a conversation that musicians have between each other about what the industry's doing?
No, I don't think so. I think we're just really hanging out. When musicians are hanging out, we're talking music, man, and we might be vibing on some great cannabis at the time. The cannabis business, I'm just trying to get involved in that and understand that I have some great friends through the years that have really been, front runners in starting the cannabis industry.
Sam, if you could you tell me about current cannabis policy in America right now? I mean, specifically on the federal level. I know in our pre-interview you mentioned how Congress is currently stanced right now. But where do the most changes need to happen in cannabis policy for federal legalization to take place?
Well, I think, something that really needs to happen is you need to get some votes on the House floor. Right now, when we're looking at our research, we found that a majority of people in the House, majority of members of the House, have publicly supported or voted in the past, said things to the effect that they support allowing states to set their own cannabis policies, to legalize medical or recreational if that state believes that to be the right course of action. But you haven't actually had any votes to these effects because in the past, you've had people on certain committees, Pete Sessions back in the day on the House Rules Committee, who blocked really any substantial marijuana legislation from coming to a vote. So with the new Congress, you've got it's a different ball game, and it remains to be seen exactly what's going to happen. But one thing that just recently sort of developed is that there will be a discussion in the committee level on cannabis banking reform, Right now, obviously, banks are barred from operating with and working with cannabis businesses. And this is one of the major issues that especially the industry would like to see cleared up. And yeah, you're finally going to have some real discussion at the congressional level, at the federal level, about sort of tweaking that and creating, legislation that that allows banks to operate, to work with the cannabis businesses, and then potentially also legislation this year down the road that would allow VA doctors to recommend cannabis, medical cannabis, in states where that's legal. That's another thing that currently federal law prohibits. So the banking and the veterans issues are things that could be addressed individually, but you also could potentially see a broader reform that just allows states to set their own policies, and perhaps the banking and the veterans issues would be cleared up along with that.
Question that kind of goes for both of you, because I think your experiences will be a little bit different. Obviously, the political arena has changed a great deal over the last 5 or 6 years. Some say it's been pretty tumultuous, and even being involved with it's being tough right now. But how has working in the political arena altered your view on politics, maybe before you started working with a project like the Cannabis Voter Project? Schmeens, do you want to go first?
We've never really, I don't know what you mean. I've never worked in the political world. The Headcount is our first endeavor, and we're not leaning one way or another way for a band. We're just signing people up to vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing we did is we had people signing a petition against prison reform, or for prison reform, excuse me.
Very interesting. So I want to follow up question on that. You're not in the political spectrum, and I get that, but getting more in registering people to vote and getting more into the cannabis space, as politics have evolved over these past couple of years. I mean, you've probably paid more attention because of these projects. So has your
paid attention because that's something that I just have a passion for doing, but that doesn't speak for everybody in lettuce. That just speaks for myself.
Very interesting. Sam, how about you?
Well, one thing that we've noticed with the changing sort of political climate at Headcount is that people are paying attention to politics a lot more right now. This last midterm election was by far Headcount's most successful midterm election in terms of registering voters. In the past, presidential elections have been really our big years, but this midterm election was in terms of the numbers more or less like a presidential year. And so, what's happening right now is clearly engaging a lot of people. It's clearly getting a lot of people interested in politics. Maybe for the first time, maybe they're putting in more interest now than they were in the past. But there's definitely a lot of energy in the political sphere that maybe didn't exist previously.
Another question really for both of you, and I'm not asking you to take a stance, but I am just throwing out the phrase, today, cannabis is federally legalized. If you were to one day hear that phrase, whether you're pro or against, because I know that we can't have you guys take a stance on this show, but how would you picture that coming about in your head? Is it passed by Congress? Is it the president signing something? What do you think is the most likely scenario if you were to hear that cannabis became federally legal?
Well, there's really two approaches. There's just an outright federal legalization, and then there's a sort of federal government hands-off, let the states do what they want approach. And those aren't exactly the same thing. And I think right now, the sort of hands-off approach, the let the states do what they want, is more likely in the very near term. So if I were to hear, that cannabis was legalized federally, I would think that it would be more likely to mean that, and that whatever journalist was writing that headline maybe hadn't done their due diligence to really get down to the nuance of it. But yeah, I mean, I think that, Can
I come here for a sec? Would you mind?
Sure.
I kind of feel my gut is telling me that federally it's not going to be legalized, but it's going to be changed from a Schedule I drug federally. Then on top of that, I feel exactly what you're saying, that state by state, it's going to keep turning over, especially when people start realizing how much money they're missing out in taxes and what it will mean for their state.
Very interesting. Now, a question for, kind of the band Lettuce entirely. And Adam, I know that you don't speak for everyone, but you can share the experience. Now, I think the voter registry has to be an important topic for everybody. But when you first start talking about working with a project like the Cannabis Voter Project and Headcount, what was that conversation like with the band? Was everyone on board right away?
No, I don't think everyone was on board right away. I think after a while of talking, we just kind of viewed this as something that is helpful to everyone, no matter what side your stance is on anything having to do with politics, that the band might not represent something fully politically. But if you know us as individuals, if you follow us individually on Twitter and stuff, you'll know exactly where we stand.
Very interesting stuff. So would you say that you all kind of have different views and representations in this, this microcosm of a band? Everyone kind of thinks and operates kind of differently?
I think a band can represent a society, that we all have slightly different views from each other. We're all human beings. We're all going to have different points of views, But I think for the most part, we all agree on trying to help people as much as we can, and we're trying to figure out a way that we can do that as a unit and do as much positive work as we can.
Follow-up question, and if this is absolutely kind of out of line, let me know. But I know that it's been a big divider in families when, you come to talk politics, when 2016 election happens and really the ongoing political structure that's been going on. And a band is like a family. You guys are around each other for such a long time. Has politics ever kind of cause tension between you guys, or what's that conversation like? Because with me and my family, I'm just like, I don't want to talk about it. You guys have your views, I have mine.
Yes, it's caused tension, but at the end of it, we're all human beings and we're all trying to reach for the same things. And I think, when it really comes down to it, as long as we respect each other as human beings, we can talk about things. Once you lose that respect for another human being, all opinions are out the window. And that's
what you noticed
as a society and as a band, if you're going to get along.
And I think that's a great message. Have you noticed any sort of reaction from your fans in regards to kind of this project?
Yeah. When we first announced it, mostly all positive. I noticed a couple people who were like, not necessarily with Headcount, but with the prison reform, just having them there upset some people. But I mean, I kind of looked at it like, really, I think we're trying to do good things here. And if you can't see that, then hey, don't come to our party, but you're missing out.
And it's all about starting the conversation.
Together, we could have a respectful conversation together if you want,
And I love that message, and I think that's my big takeaway from a lot of this is it's all about just starting that conversation and having that dialogue and not going my way where it's like I go to my family and I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. We don't agree. That's fine. You got to have that conversation and see what sort of common ground is there. Sam, obviously this project is getting more and more important by the day with, the end of 2019 coming up, 2020, the big presidential year next year. Between now and then, 2020, what elections or what big milestones should people be paying close attention to?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people really need to be paying attention to what's going on at the state level. After the changes of the last election, you've started to see a lot more movement in state legislatures on cannabis policy. In the past, this issue has tended to be moved forward by ballot initiatives, citizen-initiated ballot initiatives. But now you're actually seeing a lot of movement in a lot of state legislatures. And that's really where I think people need to start looking. In a lot of ways, you sort of exhausted the low-hanging fruit of ballot initiative states. And now you're moving on to states that are going to be making that move in the legislature, particularly in the Northeast and in the Midwest. There's been a lot of movement. So I think that's really where people need to start looking is what's going on in those legislatures, because it's looking like in 2019, you could have anywhere from one or two to a handful of states making big cannabis policy changes at the state legislative level. So that's something that's definitely very interesting as we head into the 2020 sort of election cycle.
How do people get involved with the Cannabis Voter Project? I went on the website. I saw they can volunteer at shows, which is great because you can hang out and listen to Let Us Play in the background while you're working. I'm assuming that's kind of how it works. But how do people get involved?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to our website and you can contact us through the website, or like you said, you can go to that volunteer page and maybe even volunteer at one of these upcoming Lettuce shows we've got a few of them in February and in March. And then, we're hoping to expand to other tours in the future. So maybe there'll be other bands that you can come as well as Lettuce and participate. So just keep checking that volunteer page to see how you can get involved. Also on our site, we connect you with other organizations, not us, but other organizations that are working in the cannabis sphere. So if you don't necessarily feel like volunteering with us, there's other ways you can get involved in sort of the cannabis policy area, and you can find some of that on our site.
Schmeens, talk about upcoming Lettuce tour dates. Where are you guys going to be? How can people get information about coming to all those shows? Because you guys jam, man.
You can go to our Instagram. You can go to our Facebook page. You could go to lettucefunk.com. And let's see, what do we got coming up? I think we have...
You got a couple of Colorado shows coming up.
We do. We have the Estes Park. We have Aspen. We got Salt Lake. We got Salt Lake City. We got Vegas, San Diego, Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, and then we'll be in Florida, and keeps going
all over the place.
Yeah,
it just keeps going.
And it keeps going.
Okay, so I know that most people who hear Schmeens or who hear the term lettuce or band lettuce, they know what you guys are all about. But for those who are hearing you guys for the first time or your voice for the first time, what's a lettuce show like?
It's about love, respect, community, dancing, funk music. That's it, man. Simplicity at its finest.
Have you always been a funk musician, or is there another style of music? If you had to pick one other style of music or one other kind of band to be in,
encompasses all styles. It just means that every note you play happens to be funky.
Oh, I love it. That's the catchphrase there. Every note happens to be funky. That is fantastic. Sam, tell me about what is coming up in terms of ramping up the Cannabis Voter Project and Headcount, because you mentioned that, obviously there's big things to pay attention to coming up through 2020. How are you guys going to be ramping up for all that?
Well, like I said, we're looking to get involved with their tours. We're looking to be at a lot of events. Hopefully we'll be at the National Cannabis Festival on 4/20 in Washington, D.C. We're constantly updating the website, keeping people informed about what's going on at the state level, where their politicians stand. You can follow us on social media for some daily updates in that regard. We're also, looking into maybe having a presence at dispensaries in states where it's legal. So there's a lot on the plate here, a lot of things that could potentially come to fruition, and we're just trying to expand our footprint, get as many people as possible engaged and excited, not just about cannabis, but about political engagement in general.
All right, we're talking with Sam DiArcangelo, the director of Headcount's Cannabis Voter Project, and Adam Smirnoff from Lettuce, the guitarist in Lettuce. I mean, the guy jams, funk band. You guys got to check him out. Lettucefunk.com if you want to learn more about their cannabis strain as well. Gentlemen, is there anything I didn't cover from Lettuce or anything I didn't cover from the Cannabis Voter Project that we got to get out before we get off air?
No, I think we've covered a lot, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Sam?
Just one thing I want to add, piggybacking on what Schmeens was saying earlier. One of the reasons that we decided, that cannabis was a great issue to focus on for political engagement was that it really is a bipartisan issue. A lot of issues fall in this camp or that camp, but cannabis is one that has appeal across the political spectrum. And regardless of where you stand on cannabis, it's impossible to deny that this is an issue that is important to a lot of people and that historically hasn't gotten a lot of attention. So now that it is, there's a great opportunity to bring a lot more people into the fold of this country and its sort of civic experience.
Schmeens, I gotta ask, where did your nickname come from?
My last name, Smirnoff. Smirnoff, Smirnoff, Schmeens, Schmeens. I don't know, something like that.
That's fantastic, man. Well, I always say this, but I definitely mean it, and especially on this project, 'cause I feel like as we get closer to 2020, we're going to want to talk more about specific things you guys are doing, plug more shows and events where people can go get involved and to sign up. So let's get you guys back on the show. Heck, when next time you're coming through Colorado, maybe later in the year too, maybe we can get a live podcast going in person with you guys. And tell more, information about this project and dive more into what Lettuce is all about. That sounds like something I'd love.
Where in Denver are you?
Just outside of Denver in Aurora. So hop, skip, and a jump away from most of the venues you guys probably play out here.
Yeah, no, I live in Denver. I'm in Southeast Denver. You're probably like 10 minutes from me.
Oh, no. Oh, that's hilarious. That's awesome, man. A fellow Coloradan. That's great, man. We'll have to talk off air, okay, once we get this podcast wrapped up. But we'll get you guys back on the show. A big thanks for being on the show. Again, for those listening at home, check out cannabisvoter.info, lettucefunk.com. We'll link those websites in the description of the podcast below so you can find those out. That's going to do it for us on the show this afternoon. Again, big thanks to our guests, Sam DiArcangelo and Adam Schmeens Smirnoff. Very exciting stuff. Can't wait to get them back on the show. Don't forget to leave a review or subscribe to the podcast if you're listening. Check out the video version on YouTube and hit up Rooted TV on High Times TV, Cannabis Club TV, or check the website for more places at the show streams. But that's going to do it for us on the show this afternoon. My name has been Tim Strombel, running you one more time to work hard, be humble, and stay rooted. We'll see you next week, everybody.